Okay, that's much better. Still not good, but that's still better than last time. Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the third installment in the franchise I'm currently reviewing, and that is, of course, none other than the Transformers franchise. And I've already reviewed the first two movies, and now we are going to be reviewing the third movie, what is widely often considered to be a fan favorite of the Bay films, and actually or at best, is just considered the most tolerable of the sequels, the least bad of the sequels that the first movie got. And that is, of course, for none other than 2011's Transformers Dark of the Moon. Yeah, the one where the hype was kind of started where Transformers, around the time this was being announced or confirmed, where people were kind of starting to lose their hype in Transformers, because I'm going to get to why in a bit. But what's this movie about? Well, Sam Witwicky and his new girlfriend Carly, who's played by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, joined the fray when the evil Decepticons renewed their long-standing war against the Autobots. Optimus Prime believes that resurrecting ancient Transformer Sentinel Prime, once the leader of the Autobots, may lead to victory. That decision, however, has devastating consequences. The war appears to tip in favor of the Decepticons, leading to a climatic battle or showdown in Chicago. Yeah, that's the plot of this film. So, let me recap this. The reason why this one wasn't really hyped as much as the first two, because so y'all remember when The Last Revenge of the Fallen came out in theaters in summer 2009, it made much more money at the box office both in North America and overseas, and worldwide than the first one, with over 836 million worldwide, 402 million domestically. I forget the overseas, but the first one made 710 million worldwide, so that's actually considered, so 836 is considered even more successful than the first one. However, the fan and critic reactions compared to the positivity of the first one were pretty ugly. Yeah, we all know, and all the Razzies it got, and it went on to become one of the worst sequels of all time, and one of the worst movies of all time. Well, some people kind of exaggerate on the worst movies of all time because we have worse to get to after this. After that film's disastrous reviews, most Transformers fans and comic moviegoers didn't really seem to want to continue on with the film series or franchise in general anymore. In fact, some people I know have said, when they heard that there was going to be a third one, they said, nope, I'm not seeing this. This Revenge of the Fallen was so bad, I don't want to continue this. Yeah, so pretty much almost everybody I know kind of gave up on the series after Revenge. I was kind of, I guess, because before, I started to change my opinions on Revenge of the Fallen, because since I was kind of an idiot kid at the time, I still, I guess, wanted to see this. I wasn't too hyped for it. I was kind of starting to grow out of Transformers, but I still kind of wanted to see this, and I actually did, because I actually saw this in an AMC IMAX when I was I think I was 12 years old, and I was on a bit of a summer vacation trip in Seattle around the time this movie came out, and so my family was like, why don't we go? No, I think maybe we should go see Transformers Dark of the Moon tonight. So I did. So we did, and yeah, so when Dark of the Moon was announced and the trailers debuted on the internet, some fans were still hyped and wanted to give it a second shot, mostly Transformers fans. Most of the hype that the first two had was now long gone with this one, especially since Michael Bay was still directing it. Although he reassured fans that this one would be better than last time, because technically Revenge was written during the writer's strike, and personally I think Bay should have kind of released Revenge and Dark back-to-back, kind of like what Pirates and Matrix did with their sequels. But so when the film came to theaters in July 2011, it was more I mean, reactions were better than Fallen, but they weren't anywhere like the first one still. Some fans would even kind of go on to call this their favorite of the Bay films, which, and yeah. So after I did see this in AMC IMAX when I was 12 years old, I'm I thought it was okay sequel, but I'm not one of the fans that considers this their favorites. I still like the first one way better, but I do agree that it is the most tolerable of the four sequels, especially compared to 2, 4, which is next, and from what I've heard from several subscribers of mine who are Transformers fans, 5, which I'm gonna have to watch for the first time reviewing this series. Oh no. Anyway, before I start with the bad qualities, let's start, since this is actually a pretty tolerable sequel, we'll start with the good qualities first. The good qualities? Unlike previous Transformers movies directed by Michael Bay, the Transformers in this one have more screen time than the humans, which is actually kind of a good thing, because that's often a criticism with the last two films and the rest of the Bay series, is that the Transformers hardly get any screen time. So this was kind of a good step up. At least Bay actually kind of learned his lesson this time around for this one. So pretty good CGI for the Transformers, as like the previous films. A good and emotional soundtrack by Steve Jablonsky, especially the credits sung by Indecent by Linkin Park. Rest in peace to them, to the lead singer again. Once again, the voice acting for the Transformers is still amazing, especially having Leonard Nimoy, aka Spock from Star Trek, voicing Sentinel Prime, which is also a callback to him voicing Galvatron in the animated movie. Ironhide's death was actually pretty unexpected and actually pretty sad. And the idea of an Autobot betraying the Autobots, which was Sentinel Prime, guys, is brilliantly executed, showing us that not all Autobots are good. Just like how the previous movies showed that not all Decepticons are bad, which is one of the few good things about Revenge of the Fallen. The movie's dark theme would, while it can be too much for some, but it did help to make the movie more serious, because technically this was supposed to be the last one in the series, but we all know how that went. Great sound design. In fact, it could be said that at the time it was even better than the previous two films, given a trivia point below. And Jerry Wan can be funny sometimes, like Ken Jeong's character, even though he's a bit unnecessary. And unlike the previous movie, the movie has human antagonists, although not the main ones, which is a nice change, and it was actually kind of well executed. And this ending is probably the most satisfying of the sequels. Despite that, like, many major Decepticons are kind of killed off without fleshed out detail, but I'll still take this way this movie ended, actually. And some pointless Transformers from previous movies, such as Skids and Mudflap, you know, those two racist ones from Revenge of the Fallen, are gone in this sequel. The later two are barely in the movie, because in the comic adaptation, it's confirmed that they were actually killed. So thankfully, the racist Transformers are dead, and we never have to see them again. And, well, yeah, there are still some of the vulgar Michael Bay moments, but there's not quite as much as in Revenge of the Fallen. That, in fact, I think the only really vulgar Michael Bay scene in this movie is the beginning, where Sam's new girlfriend Carly is introduced walking upstairs in her underwear, and you kind of get a little bit of a butt shot. But I think other than that, that's kind of the only really vulgar Michael Bay scene in the movie. Most of the movie is kind of about as clean as the first one. So yeah. The film actually does have a pretty good ending. In fact, this should have been the last sequel we ever got, because if you want to know why, you're going to see why I think this should have been the last sequel we got in the next review. However, despite those good qualities, there are still a number of bad qualities in this sequel that prevent this from being my favorite Transformers movie. Because those bad qualities are that it wastes potential for Shockwave, the Driller, Crankcase, Crowbar, Hatchet, Soundwave again, Laserbeak, Dino Mirage, the Wreckers, and Wheeljack. Just like Revenge of the Fallen. Well, it also butchers some great actors like John Malkovich, Frances McDormand, and Patrick Dempsey. And Michaela Barnes, Sam's girlfriend, who was girlfriend from the first two films, doesn't appear in this film, or is she even mentioned, and is instead replaced by Carly as Sam's girlfriend due to her decision, well, technically because Megan Fox got fired, and because of some comments she made about Michael Bay, but personally I kind of don't really blame her for not wanting to work with Michael Bay, really. Carly herself isn't even that interesting of a love interest compared to Michaela, Many fans believe it's a waste of potential since she never appears again and could have made the movie better if Michaela Barnes was married to Sam at the end of the movie. However, while I don't like Carly, I don't think Michaela's any better because even Michaela was still pretty annoying. So that's and Shockwave was the most hype, which many people believed that he would be the main antagonist. However, he only had like seconds of screen time, and Sentinel Prime was the main antagonist. And the movie even tries to make the audience feel bad or worried about Bumblebee being killed, despite the fact that he never gets any consequences throughout the movie. And the pacing makes the film feel longer than it needs to be. It's often a common criticism of the Transformers movies. The Transformers movies, the Bay ones, they feel needlessly long. Almost a little bit too long. Like I get this was meant to be like the final chapter or something, but come on, it didn't really need to be like 4 hours long or something. You're not Lord of the Transformers. Like Michael Bay, stop trying to be Peter Jackson, dude. You're not Lord of the Rings. No. The main villain, Sentinel Prime, can even be considered a rather poor antagonist, as his statement perfectly contradicts what Optimus Prime learned and said from Fallen. At the same time that Sentinel falls into the good character was actually bad trope, which is quite forced since Sentinel has 14 or 15 minutes on screen, although nothing helps what Ultra Magnus was going to do originally. The one that was going to take the role of Sentinel. In fact, the treatment Sentinel Prime is given throws away everything established in Generation 1. And the performances of the human cast like Shia LaBeouf, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, Julie White, Frances McDormand, Ken Jeong, John Malkovich, and even Patrick Dempsey are incredibly bad. And there's even still lots of plot holes, like for example, Carly overheard Sentinel's plans, but just looking into a microscope, and when she was rescued, Sam told the NEST about their plans despite Carly not having any time to tell him. And all the Autobots are treated as disposable red shirts except Bumblebee and Optimus. Joel, Arcee, Chromia, and Elita 1 are suddenly gone with no explanation of what happened to them. And Mirage and Wheeljack have been renamed to Dino, pronounced as Dino in the movie, and Q. Mirage was renamed because of the legal rights from Ferrari not wanting a Transformer character representing their company, while Wheeljack was renamed for no reason. And like the previous film, it has several unpleasant and annoying characters who far from serving as comic relief or help within the plot, only hinder. It can be said that Jerry Wan, Dylan Gold, Judy Witwicky, Charlotte Meaning, Bruce Bunta, and Sentinel Prime get to make the most unbearable of the entire movie. Then again, Sam's parents are also unbearable, but at least in this movie they finally don't have many scenes, which is a relief, because I hate Sam's parents. And several major Decepticon characters are violently killed off for no reason other than because they're evil. Also, while some major Decepticons in the previous movies reappear only to be killed off in the background. And speaking of the Decepticon models being reused, the movie has the most reused Decepticon models that it gives the beloved Decepticons not much of an identity anymore. And although the visual effects are amazing, but there are very marked moments in the film where the effects are similar to those of PS3 and PS4. And at the same time, scenes changes designs in the Autobots and Decepticons are shown where both look faded or bad structured. Many characters that were undeveloped in the previous films never develop in any way, and cliche moments here and there, such as the Autobots faking their death when Optimus Prime says, "You don't betray me, you betrayed yourself." There are even notable errors in the choreography of the film where you can see a sunny day, and then a cloudy or semi-cloudy day on the same stage. There's even two scenes where it can be clearly seen that the stock footage of the island, also directed by Michael Bay, is used. And speaking of the city destruction, some shots are very disturbing for a PG-13 movie, because this film's just another mindless, consequence-free city destruction, such as a shot where the Decepticon fighter turns a group of running civilians into skulls and bones, and a shot with human corpses in a destroyed bus. And there was even a scene in the original script where Megatron shoots an elephant, which leads to scaring animals, but it was never made for being deemed too violent in the movie, and due to Michael Bay being an animal lover. The scene, however, is actually in the comic book adaptation of the movie. The designs of the new characters, like Sentinel Prime, Shockwave, Barricade, Wheeljack, and Leaf, are horrendous, which counterbalances the original designs in Generation 1 and 2. In the different dubbing that is distributed in the film, several of the voices are very deficient. And seeing the running civilians and terror getting blasted apart on screen is actually kind of frightening for a PG-13 film, and this film even uses a rather nasty glow and filter on different scenes, featuring Autobots and Decepticons, which makes the viewer uncomfortable. And similar to the case of the second film, Michael Bay uses sexual and adult humor in a very bad way, although once again not as much as its predecessor, but still, some moments here and there. And the opening scene when the Ark crash lands on the moon is a bland ripoff of Transformers Armada's intro. And Sam and the others, when they go to Chicago, their only intention is to save Curly and not to stop the Decepticons from taking over the world. So basically, Sam's pretty much just going to Chicago with the soldiers just so he can get his girlfriend back and get laid. Man, thankfully on the bright side, this is the last sequel where we ever have to see Sam. Thank God. Because while the other two sequels were worse, Mark Wahlberg's character is actually, I will admit, a bit more likable than Sam Witwicky ever was. He only should have worked in the first one, and just the first one, and that is it. And some of the soundtrack is even reused too, such as the battle music heard in both of the freeway chase and the scene where the Autobots storm in Chicago respectively. But yeah, in the end, there's are my good qualities and my bad qualities. I think this is just a mess sequel at best. Some can say it's their favorite Bay Transformers film, but to me, that will still be the first one. But this would have actually been a decent ending to this series, but since this one made even more money than the first two with over $1.123 billion at the box office, despite making less than Revenge of the Fallen in North America, due to some fans' rage quitting the series after Fallen, it still made a good $352 million domestically, so we all know what sadly came after this since Bay got so much money from this movie. That's next. We know what's coming next after this. Anyway, my recommendation is just you go stream this on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or even on Netflix if it's there. And here's how I'm going to rank it. I am going to give Transformers Dark of the Moon a 6.5 out of 10. And there we go. That wraps up my review for Dark of the Moon, and now I am unfortunately about to go rewatch. Yeah, I'm about to rewatch this piece of shit next. Because I gotta rewatch all the movies to review this whole damn franchise. But thankfully there are only 2 more sequels to go in this whole Bay series, and then we can move on to, and then after I review that and the one I never saw in theaters, I can finally review this after I finish watching these sequels. So at least that'll be better. But anyway, yeah, I'm about to go watch Age of Stink. And until then, that will be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.